Thanks for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. It's not Steven Jodder introducing it this time. It's Armand Kafai. He's actually sick, and it's his birthday, but joining me from Wisconsin is Steven Jodder, and joining us from Minnesota is the great Jake Retrova. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about the scrutiny and dynamics of potential relocation of the Columbus Crew. Brian Sciaretta joins us to discuss the USMNT national team, the future of coaching. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod. We always enjoy your feedback and interaction, and continue to send them in. You can always find the show on the major podcast platform. I'd highly recommend you go listen to the latest episode where Jake and I actually complete our fourth episode of the mini-series where we talk to Andrew Erickson of Columbus Dispatch, Morgan Hughes from Save the Crew, and Josh Babetsky from MLS in Austin. But let's jump right into it.
A lot was made on Twitter regarding the Austin fans going up to Frisco, Texas to watch the Columbus Crew take on FC Dallas. And Armand Kafai was there. Armand, tell us.
I was, yeah.
Tell us what the atmosphere was like.
Oh, man. That's a tough one because it was very interesting. I actually met up with some Austin supporters for a story I was doing prior to the match. At a local bar, and they were excited. They were telling me that this was never planned, that this was never, if it was more of, hey, a lot of us want to come down to watch a game. That team may have some players on our team next year, may not, we don't know. And then that memo got, I guess, leaked is the right word, to the Twitter, and people blew up. The atmosphere, Dallas supporters group does not like Austin. I mean, we heard plenty. We saw Save the Crew signs at the match from the supporters group. I think I saw one specific fan hold him, and I think I saw a couple of Save the Crew jerseys sprinkled in there. There was a chant started saying, I think it was like F Austin, I think, like that. Don't want to curse on the show because we're a family-friendly podcast. But it was just a really just interesting dynamic because I don't know what's going to happen next year. Because if MLS goes to Austin next year, I mean, are these the same people who are going to be going on the road trips? That's what I'm interested in. I think it was kind of hostile a little bit, to be honest with you. And I personally, from my vantage point in the press box, I could not see MLS in Austin. They were very, I guess, discreet is the right word, because I could not see them at all from the press box. So, I mean, they weren't making like a big scene or anything like that. They just look like normal fans in the game from my vantage point.
On Twitter, I saw one person have an MLS in Austin scarf at the game. I think it was sitting next to Lamar Hunt statue over there on one of the north end. But Jake,
yeah.
Somebody who's obviously not from Texas, what's your take on this ordeal? And I personally don't understand why people from Dallas are so pissed, or people nationally are so pissed that people from Austin drove up to see a team that is not their team play. Like, if you're FC Dallas and you're fans, great. More people at the stadium. We'll take your money. Spend your money here.
Support your domestic league, right? That's what I've been told. When I wasn't watching MLS, when I was only watching the Premier League, support your local league. The MLS can't get better unless you support it. And what do we have here? Some fans from Austin supporting their domestic league. I don't know. In one hand, it is kind of I don't know if going to the game with the Crew playing in Dallas, going there with your MLS and Austin garb and your shirts and your flags and your scarves or whatever. I don't know if that was in good taste, considering what's going on right now in Columbus and the state of Ohio with the pending litigation between PSV and the state of Ohio. I don't know if that seemed to be kind of a middle finger to Crew fans, but on one instance, like you said, it's just fans soccer fans wanting to watch a soccer match. So what's the big deal? I do applaud that MLS in Austin, based on what Armand has said, when going to the game discreetly, not making it known that they're from Austin, not having their black and green oak tree.
I mean, some did. Hey, some did, but I mean, from what the memo said, they said, hey, we don't want y'all to make a big scene out of it. And from we in the press box tried to locate the MLS in Austin, and we could not find them. To be quite honest with you, maybe because I'm blind. I don't know. Is that kind of something? But I just didn't see them.
But their mission was to be discreet about it. I'm reading from Dallas Morning News. Dan Crook, he talked about this ordeal before the match, and quote: leaders from MLS and Austin Group sent an email to members planning to attend in an effort to harbor good relations with Dallas's largest supporter section, the Beer Guardians. Unfortunately, this idea was mentioned without actually speaking with the Dallas Beer Guardians or anyone at or around FC Dallas. First of all, why does MLS in Austin have an obligation to reach out? It's a group of people. They told them, if you go into the game, stay discreet. I don't see what an issue is. It would have been a bigger deal if the people in Austin had reached out to the Dallas Beer Guardians. I think that would have made the Dallas Beer Guardians and the Dallas supporter section
you're right, Steven.
a bad.
I think you're right.
Can't.
That's legitimizing it. That's legitimizing.
Exactly. So you just let it be. You just ignore people. If they come to the game, great. And then this is the line where this baffles me. Dan continues to write, the timing is also poor. The crew still belong to the city of Columbus, and this is both MLS's Childhood Cancer Night and Dallas's LGBT Pride Weekend. Sorry, but Austin fans, that's not going to bother them. It's not like they had a choice of like, okay, well, let's go to a game in Dallas on LGBT Pride Weekend and MLS Childhood Cancer Night. Yeah, that somehow has Austin influenced that decision. I'm sorry, but Austin does not have any control of that. Columbus was playing Dallas. They had, they could have bought tickets or circled this game last season when the announcement was made by Precourt that Columbus is looking to Austin. They could have circled this whenever the schedule came out. I don't know when Dallas decided to do an LGBT Pride Weekend or MLS Childhood Cancer Night. In fact, I think it's good. More people at the game, more people to celebrate Pride Weekend, more people to get into the message behind MLS Childhood Cancer Night. How is that taken away from it? Somebody explain that to me, please. I'm baffled by the situation. Why are people pissed going to an MLS soccer game when we know in this country MLS is fifth when it comes to how important? Some markets, yeah, it might be 1, 2, or 3. But in Dallas, I guarantee you that is the 5th team. People have absolutely no concern of what FC Dallas is doing. Armand, Jake, thoughts?
Dan, I was just gonna let you go there because you were kind of rolling.
Me too.
I got my popcorn ready. I'm just sitting here. I'm just kind of listening.
I wish I had some popcorn. Damn, like that was a. I mean, Steven, I think the whole issue with the thing is, I think first off, if the memo was never leaked, do you think anyone would notice? That would be my first thing, and because I think that would change the kind of narrative behind it. Because this memo was leaked, it does look like from here that hey, they're apparently organizing a trip down there, but they didn't get any buses or anything like that, and quite frankly, like shoot, man, I'd love to see MLS stadiums more full, and if people from Austin want to drive up 3 hours to come watch a game, so be it. That's their call. Like.
Which they already do. Some of the FC Dallas fans are from Austin.
So some of them already do that. So I don't. Sure, it might be an issue because it's Columbus and Austin, but hey, man, like at the base of things, it's some people coming up to watch a team that potentially isn't theirs, that still is up in the air. We still don't know if it's going to be a team in Austin, and they're coming up to watch a game.
Well,
I think it's interesting.
It is interesting, but let's not forget, Precourt is doing a massive disservice to everybody right now. Come on, come out and tell us what the hell you're thinking. Furthermore, it should be MLS's job and Dan Garber to come out and tell fans of Columbus and fans of Austin what's going on. Because those two fan bases, one of them is going to get shafted. One of them is going to get their heart ripped out. Whether they stay in Columbus or move to Austin. And you leave crew fans...
Steven, you're right. The criticism should fall on MLS and Precourt. I'm confused why some of the fans have been caught in the like the crossfire. It should fall strictly on MLS and Precourt because they need to announce, like grow up a little bit and say, hey, we're doing A, B, and C. Like they're throwing both fans are in the dark because Austin's like, oh, we might get an MLS team, and Columbus like, oh, we might lose our MLS team. No one knows what's going on, and anyone that says they know what's going on, they're lying to you. No one knows what's going on. Even some of the Austin supporters, they're like, man, like this team isn't ours yet. We don't know. I mean, it could be, but we don't know. It's not our team. Like this. We're as much in the dark as crew fans. Like we don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know our future. So I'm with you on that.
I don't know. I don't understand the why this is such a big deal. When the schedule came out, you see, Columbus Crew going to Frisco in mid-September. There might be some Austin folks that come up for that game. I don't know why that wasn't kind of an expected thing. I don't know why anyone is surprised. And to kind of build off of Armand's point, I don't know why the Austin supporters are getting ripped on for doing this, and why it's almost like they are getting as much grief as MLS and PSV is. I mean, you can't put yourself in their shoes. They don't have a professional sports team down there. If you're a soccer fan, you don't have a team. And all of a sudden now someone says, hey, I want to bring soccer to MLS, or I want to bring MLS to Austin, sorry.
Let's bring soccer to Major League Soccer.
Some Euro snobs might argue that you do need to bring soccer to MLS. But anyway.
That was a good comeback, Jake. I like it.
Yeah, maybe don't edit that out. Leave it in there. But anyway, I just don't understand why we're giving this group of people grief, why we are ripping them down, because they're excited that they're getting a soccer team and the team that potentially is going to be playing in their city come next spring. They want to go and see them. I don't know. Like, they try to do it discreetly. The media in Austin leaked the story, and now they're the bad guys. Like Armand said, they didn't go to Frisco with flags waving, scarves up,
it's not
banners,
organized in the corner.
It wasn't like they were traveling in a away section for crying out loud, like the 5 or 10 crew fans that were there, or if it was any other.
Because if that was the case, I think it'd definitely be an issue. If they're like flaunting like their gear and all that stuff, because then you're kind of like, okay, you're kind of claiming a team that's not yours, and like you're a third party. Why the hell are you here? But you're right, because they did it so discreet. I couldn't see them from the press box, and that's a very good vantage point. It's not like I have a garbage vantage point. It's a very good vantage point. I couldn't see them. So they did their job being discreet.
Armand, could you, before we continue in this conversation, we should have done this earlier in the show, but can you just read out what the memo said? Just for our listeners to get more context.
I'll paraphrase it. Yeah. So it was a memo sent out in their newsletter that anyone can sign up for, but it wasn't supposed to, it was supposed to be specifically targeted towards members. It wasn't supposed to go out. And they said, we asked to be low key, no banners, tifo, taunting, Austin chants or cheers, to be respectful to any crew fans we encounter or Dallas fans who are sympathetic to the situation. If you're wearing your shirt or your scarf as an individual choice, what we don't want to see is a camera point to our section and easily point out to Austin supporters, nor people going out of their way to wave an Austin scarf, hat, or t-shirt in someone's face. They said, think of this as more of like a scouting mission, I guess. It's a great chance to build relationships with the beer garden, Dallas Beer Gardens supporters group, and see some players in action ahead of next year. And the last thing says is, please do not forget that the team on the pitch on September 15th is still Columbus's. Sorry, it's not ours. That's what the memo was saying.
I don't see any issue with it. Build good relations. I think the problem is they weren't traveling as a group; they're traveling as individuals. So they're basically going, "Look, we're all part of this one family here in Austin. Just don't make us look bad." Some responsibility to the individuals who are involved there. I think it's a little overblown. I think people take their anger towards Anthony Precourt and MLS and put it on the Austin fans. Look, you can't blame Austin fans for having the opportunity to receive an MLS team. It's part of American sports culture, this relocation thing. There's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars about being, relocating them. And let me tell you, I'm sure the NFL, if they could, they'd relocate them in a heartbeat.
Save the Jaguars.
Yeah, where's that trend? But Jake, moving forward, this Austin dynamic, this is going to set up a really interesting dynamic in the league. If the Crew move to Austin, you're going to talk about a club that is hated off the back.
Yeah, it'll be that way for 2 years, and then people will move on and forget. I mean, come on. We have this conversation, I feel like the last 3 weeks.
No, but I feel...
Man, people are going to really hate Austin FC El Tree. They're going to, man, that's going to be, people are never going to forget that. Like, come on, man. No one hates the Houston Dynamo. No one cares anymore. And if anybody tweets me again about how the Houston Dynamo moving to, the San Jose Earthquake moving to Houston is completely different than the Crew moving to Austin. How it, the owner had no choice. Like, why are we defending billionaire owners in San Jose for jerk? And he can't take my team, but what he did in San Jose to Houston, perfectly fine. Don't really care, and that's it. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to care in 2 years. At the end of the day, it's going to be the Texas Derby or whatever the hell it's called between Dallas and Austin or Austin and Houston. No one's going to care. No, the Lone Star State Derby, they're going to have the Lone Star Cup like they have the Cascadia Cup or whatever. They're going to do stupid stuff like that, and no one's going to care. No one, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Atlanta's like the most hated club in MLS, and that's only because they're good. And that's only because the fans give off, or maybe this is even Seattle. You can give it to Atlanta or Seattle about how we're like the crown jewel of U.S. soccer, and like this whole slug thing. Like, no one's really gonna care. It's a team in 5 years. It's so stupid. Stop pretending that this is a big deal in like the grand scheme of things. This is an American sports league. You wanted your American take on soccer. You got it. You got playoffs. You got no pro rel. You got a salary cap. And guess what? Sometimes teams relocate. And guess what? It happened. It's going to happen again.
Brilliant. Alexi Lawless-esque rant. I see.
Well, it's just stupid. With these people, like everybody who, and there's years now, I think too, it pisses me off. You get these people who don't want promotion relegation in this league, right? Or in this country. We can't have promotion relegation because the lower leagues couldn't support it. The owners couldn't support it. So why are we defending the owners for promotion relegation? We don't want that. But then when the owners want to do the thing for their business, to better their business potentially, these stupid greedy owners, screw them. Well, pick one. Stop talking out of both sides of your mouth. It's so stupid. Of soccer fans in this country who want it one way and they want it the other way. They want to eat their cake or have their cake and eat it too. Be consistent.
Yeah, that's
Be consistent.
Consistency is key. And what people don't realize is that you have to be consistent with your principles. But with Columbus and Austin, you have two fan bases that really shouldn't hate each other. Okay? I don't understand the animosity towards each other. The Crew want the Crew to stay there. Okay? That's Columbus's stake. Austin, they just want a team. Okay? It's sad that they're getting it. But this is the only option they have. Why? Because U.S. soccer has this system that doesn't have the ability to allow teams to go up and down like you see in Europe. But more importantly, Columbus Crew fans and Austin fans, where is the initiative to take your hate towards each other and push it to the league? Because the league is now
who deserves it? Because the league. Like, yeah, Steve, I'm sorry to interrupt you, man.
Go.
But like now I'm about to go on my soapbox. I'm baffled that we're sitting here right now with two fan bases that hate each other, but there's like no like basis like for like, oh, you're gonna get a team at the expense of my team. Okay, that might make sense. But why isn't the hate shifted towards, hey, MLS for facilitating this? Hey, some of the other owners for like kind of letting this happen, not being outspoken. For hell, the single entity structure. You could even go on and on. Don Garber has handled this terribly. He's kind of saying, oh, yeah, we might have a team in Columbus too, but, Austin, Meanwhile, guys, I can't believe this. This is a team that's about to get relocated, and they're releasing logos without the team actually being announced yet. How does this make any sense? How is MLS going to say, yeah, PSV, do that. Go do that. Are they out of their minds? That makes no sense. None of this makes any sense. And this is the reason why this is blown up is because MLS has handled this terribly. The fans in Austin, they have nothing to do with how bad MLS has handled this. Why are they allowing PSV to release these things? How does this make anything better? The team hasn't officially relocated and there's still a logo. What if the team doesn't even play? What if they're like they reach a settlement with Columbus and something happens to Modelo and they can't play? How does this look for the league? It looks terrible. This is all MLS. MLS has to get their act together and figure out. They should have made sure before Precourt announces intentions moves to Austin that securing the land would have been a little bit easier than what it was because it was a pain in the behind to get that figured out. But you know what? We're gonna sit there and we're gonna blame the fans for everything. Oh yeah, them us Austin fans, all of them. You know what? No, let's look and blame the bright people. Let's look at Precourt. Let's look at MLS for completely mishandling this situation and making everyone just look terrible in each situation. Why are we looking at the fans like, oh, you're coming to the soccer game? Wow, screw you. You're a POS. But you know what? We don't hear anything about Precourt or Garber. They should be getting 100% of the blame, and that's it. Like I don't get this, guys. Like we're defending, like y'all saying, we're defending owners. Like, and I think Jake has hit the hammer on the head. Why are we protecting owners? Oh, we don't protect their best interests, but the other ones like, oh, don't do this. Why are we expecting Anthony Precourt to sell the crew to a local business owner when maybe his valuation of the crew is going to be much higher than what the crew people in Columbus want to pay for it? Guys, remember, we talked about that number with the Toronto FC's expansion being like $20 million and now it's like $150 million like 7 years later. Why are we expecting Precourt to sell? What are we doing? What are we doing? Are we like? It's so bizarre. You know what? I don't want to blame the Save the Crew supporters because you know what? I would do the same thing if I was trying to defend my team. But like everyone else, what are we doing? Seriously.
I love this Taylor Twellman impression you're doing right now.
No, but like, oh, don't worry. I'll be going on that with the USMNT national team. Don't worry.
Stay tuned.
Couple segments. I'll be going into that. That's gonna be something else. But guys, like, I don't get it. I'm with Jake here. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Anyway, listeners.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. It really doesn't. Listeners, send in your hate at Armand Kafai, at Steven Jotter, and at Jake Witroba. Jake's already gotten some.
Yeah, spread the love out. I don't want all the hate. Spread the love. Give Steven some hate. Give Armand some hate. I love to troll, but sometimes, when you tweet me during a Vikings game on Sunday afternoon, I don't care. I'm not going to respond.
Unc Sam Soccer Pod. Just send it all there.
Keep it at 240 characters.
Anyway, listeners, up next is Brian Sciaretta. We'll talk some U.S. men's national team, and I assure you, we'll get more hot takes coming your way.
Joining us now on the show is America Soccer Now's Brian Sciaretta. You can follow him on Twitter at Brian Sciaretta. Brian, how are you doing today?
Well, very good, very good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Brian, thanks for joining us this afternoon here. Want to talk about the U.S. men's national team performances against Brazil and Mexico. What did you make of those?
It's a work in progress. We check about how hard it is to overhaul an entire team. And just completely gut a core and then try to establish one against the hardest team, some of the best teams in the world. It's just, you're going to take your lumps along the way. And Brazil was was a learning lesson. And Mexico, they didn't start off well, but when the formation changed, when Julian Green came in, Julian Green was good, but it also forced a formational change, which was even better. And I thought the U.S. played all right. It's learning lessons for everybody. And definitely some players improved their stock and some did not. And, and I think it's leaving a real clear game plan for the next coach whenever he takes the reins.
Do you think it's hard for these players to be in a situation where the coach is not going to be there for the next cycle of, I guess, World Cup qualifiers? No. I mean, look, I think, all these players have dealt with managers for short-term performances. And, and I think when you're in a position where you're just trying to get a taste of the national team game, you're going to be motivated regardless, because you know that the next coach is going to go back and look at these tapes, and that this is your chance to really show what you can do against either a rival or against a team like Brazil, or before that it was France and Ireland and Bolivia. Like you're learning, the moment here, and the players are so young that, that I think you could say what you want about, I don't think he's the right person for the next job. I think they need a different direction. But I think Sarachan's been very good in the fact that he's kind of calmed everything down, and he's done a good job of shielding these players from being attached to the core that really oversaw the World Cup qualifying failure. He's done a good job of not having these players have to answer for that, because they weren't around at the same time. But he's kind of shielded that distraction away from them. And I think they really respect that. They like playing for him. The players I spoke to, even the guys abroad, MLS, doesn't matter. They like playing under him. So, as much as I consider, even when he makes formations I don't really agree with to start the game, he's done very well from a personal standpoint in terms of getting these players hungry to play these games and excited to play these games and not to have to deal with too much nonsense. So for that, man, he's been a great interim manager in that sense of the word. So, the players have responded well, and I think it's been pretty easy for them, as easy as possible.
Brian, was there any player you were most impressed by during these two games?
I mean, that his case the most. And obviously Tyler Adams played very, very well. But what's funny is what really impressed me a lot was Anthony Robinson, because he did take some lumps against Brazil. And, you play these games against opponents like this with such a young core, knowing you're going to take your lumps. You're not going to see guys easily or, be able to handle their attackers. I mean, it's just not possible. So it's a question of how they respond when they do take their lumps, because that's what you want to see from these games. You're not going to, it's unrealistic to expect that these guys are going to be able to compete with them, but it's how they respond if they make a mistake. And, look, Douglas Costa, attacked Anthony Robinson effectively a couple of times against Brazil, and one of them resulted in a goal. Robinson played well, though. Towards the end of the game, he had the best, most dangerous U.S. chance with that really good cross into the box. And then against Mexico, he tilted the game for the United States. When he came in, took advantage of being a man up and used his speed. And then it was his assist to Adams that did it, that really won the game. So his response was really very telling in a good way, because that's what you want to see from these guys, is how they respond. So, those are guys that I think helped. I mean, Julian Green did well. And I think, Zach Steffen is clearly far and away the number one goalkeeper there. So, they're accomplishing quite a bit here, I think, this year, in terms of being able to address a real good depth chart at a lot of different positions. Some people are saying nothing's changed since the World Cup failure. I disagree completely. I mean, they've got a bunch of young, hungry players who are doing well, responding well, and they've developed a good depth chart. Now they have a general manager in place, so it's they are making progress in a lot of key ways, and obviously since that failure, they've also earned the right to host a World Cup, which is a very rare occurrence, and it's tough to do, and a lot of politics involved, and they pulled it off. So, yeah, I think it's been a good year, and they've done a lot of good.
Well, a big talking point is the U.S. men's national team vacancy at the manager or coaching position. Obviously, we have an interim Dave Sarakan, but what is your feeling the U.S. soccer wants to go towards? Is it somebody in MLS, or are they looking abroad?
Well, I mean, I think you got to look at the individual coach, and I think to look at guys who are currently, in MLS. I think they'll probably look at guys who are currently abroad. Ernie has a big Rolodex. I still believe that the rumors there that there is validity to Greg Berhalter being the guy. I mean, that he's done well with the crew. Yes, he's coached 4 years in MLS, but here's a guy who has extensive experience abroad and domestically. I mean, he was a 15-year career abroad and captain of 2 teams. Studied for his coaching licenses while he was living abroad too. I mean, he always had that mindset as a player. Very good World Cup success as a player. So I think there's a guy who, and players responded well to him when he was a player. So he's had a lot of leadership, and he's very serious nonsense kind of a guy. And then when you're looking at a reason why the U.S. team failed to qualify, it really wasn't a lack of talent. I mean, yes, it wasn't as strong of U.S. teams as they've had in years past, but there was the team was coming apart at the seams, I think, internally. I mean, and that really showed. I mean, there was a divide on the team. There really wasn't a coherent philosophy. And, I think, Berhalter is the kind of guy that is no nonsense to the point where he just won't put up with that. And he's not going to let things get out of control like that. And I think, Ernie Stewart is too. I mean, Ernie Stewart's a guy who, when you look at his role as technical director for 4 Dutch teams, they or 3, team chemistry and cohesion was a big thing of what he did. That and analytics were 2 things that you could say were different about him that really defined how he ran programs. So I think both those guys kind of have the same value points, and believe they check a lot of boxes. And I think Berhalter's been able to connect well with American players. So as a player and a coach, so I think it's going to be him, but it really wouldn't surprise me, if some other names started entering into the mix too as well.
Brian, what do you make of these rumors about David Moyes being interested in the managerial opening? He seems to be throwing his name out there to media members. Does he have any chance of landing this position?
I mean, I think that they'll ask questions. I mean, when you look at a guy who's coached guys like Tim Howard and Landon Donovan, had a lot of success and has a lot of context. I think it would be wrong to at least dismiss the fact that they'll do their due diligence on him. Although I think it's slim that he'll get the job, but his stock has fallen quite a bit over the years. And look, he's also making noise about wanting to take the Atlanta United job if Tata Martino moves on. I think there's a lot of interest for him being in the United States. I think that's what's driving the discussion. But whether or not he's the right guy for the job is, you have to ask some serious questions about why things haven't gone right for him. Over the last however many years.
Brian, one last question here, and we'll let you go. So much has been made about the failure to qualify for Russia 2018. Does the national team need guys like Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley in it for the next qualifying cycle?
Well, I mean, you got to look at the position by position, and then you got to look at the roster about what, and then the depth chart, and then see whether or not any player makes sense. My belief is that they're not linked together, and I think there's a lot greater chance of Josie Altidore coming back to the national team than Michael Bradley. I mean, just because there are not a lot of forwards right now in the player pool that are playing professionally at a high level. I mean, like people talk about Sargent and Weah, but they're still very raw and new players that like they're unestablished, and they're at a career where like they haven't successfully made it yet. You don't know where their ceiling or where their floor is as a player, so you can't really bank on them as being like, maybe they will emerge and be there in fourth. And whereas in central midfield, there's a lot of good options right now that the team should feel very comfortable with, and that might push Michael Bradley out. But for Josie, there's just not a lot of guys that are unequivocally coming out and saying like, look, I belong here instead of Josie. Hopefully, you always want to see players get pushed down when they start getting towards 30. You always want to see a young group emerge and knock down the older generation, but that has not happened yet. It might happen with Sargent, Weah, and others, but it hasn't happened yet. So I think there is a good chance that Josie comes back to the national team until someone does, and that's the way it should be too. You don't want to hand anything to players that don't deserve it, and you want someone to come up and unequivocally take it from Josie, but that hasn't happened yet.
No doubt. Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time today. Please tell our listeners where we can find your work and where we can find you on Twitter.
Oh, well, I'm on Twitter all the time, Brian Sciaretta, Sciaretta. I'm in American Soccer now most of the time, although I appear at some other places too, and maybe some other different places in the near future. And I've done quite a bit of work in the past for the New York Times as well. So you can find me a lot of different places, but check American Soccer Now first.
Oh, the U.S. men's national team. At this point, we might as well call it the U.S. men's youth national team because it seems like we're only playing kids these days. Jake and Armand, an interesting week for the U.S. men's national team. Beat Mexico 1-0 in Nashville, lose to Brazil 2-0 up in New York. I don't know. Can you take away anything from those matches? We talked to Brian about it, but what are y'all's takes on it?
Julian Green is still a relevant player, which always makes me laugh.
Don't tell his dad that.
Oh yeah.
You want to tell the listeners what happened?
I tweeted that I was surprised that Julian Green was one of the best players on the pitch, and his dad replies, or I guess someone in his family replies, "Really?" And so that's how I started Twitter beef with Julian Green's dad. So. There we go. It's kind of weird, but
what about you, Jake?
I have two things here. First of all, the U.S. going forward looks very poor without Christian Pulisic. So I think he's crucial. Well, obviously, very crucial to this team for this next 4 years here as we qualify or get ready for 2022. And the other thing that stood out to me is for the first time since Brazil, I shouldn't say the first time, but one of the few times since Brazil, we saw an American player show some backbone. We saw Matt Miazga kind of stand up to some of the opposition. I know this is a point of controversy that we shouldn't make fun of people who are shorter than us. We shouldn't make fun of people who are 5'6" or 5'7" or whatever.
Hey, chill out, man.
I know that really got you, didn't it? You were very offended by that. I know.
Oh, extremely.
No, I really liked it. I really liked that he kind of showed some kind of that "fu" attitude. I'm gonna get in your face, and it's just something we haven't seen from the U.S. and like it feels like since Brazil. I don't know about if you guys agree about that.
I'll be honest, I completely forgot about that moment, and that's been in the news. Like I forgot that moment probably would not have been mentioned on the show by me, at least, because I had forgotten about it. My big concern is I really don't care what happens on the field. You know why? Because off the field, U.S. soccer is such a disaster that progress. Brian talked about progress, and I can see why and where he sees it. But let's put this hat on. If you're Mexico, you got to the World Cup, you beat Germany, you crash out against Brazil. You play 4 games at the World Cup. You have these friendlies in September. You roll out a bunch of young kids. A couple of them, or one of them at least, scouted by Manchester United. But they too have an interim head coach. What has U.S. soccer done for the last freaking year regarding a head coaching position? You don't have a top 3, a list, a couple of names that Ernie Stewart could tell a media member to tell the fans, like, look, we're looking at a couple of names. I'm not going to mention who, but we have a list. Right now, it is the exact same crap that we're getting with MLS and Anthony Precourt regarding the Cruise. We get nothing. We have no direction, nothing. The leadership in U.S. soccer as a whole, in MLS and U.S. soccer as a federation, is terrible. And it should really question whether or not they have the backbone to lead and steer the ship to 2026, because 2022 will be a preparation for 2026 when the World Cup is here in America.
We don't have a coach. It's been almost a year we don't have a coach, and I guess I don't know, what are we like? I hit my best Taylor Twellman impression now, but what are we doing? Seriously, guys, like, think about it. We laughed off probably one of the better coaching prospects out there, who's bilingual, who has a proven track record in the World Cup, and Juan Carlos Osorio. We laughed him off. We'll just use our Greg Berhalter. Like, man, we're waiting 1 year for an MLS coach? Like, couldn't this have been done like 7 months ago or something like that? Like, why is this taking so long for an MLS coach?
Oh, you're so right. Sorry, Armand.
It's not like we're going after We're looking at Greg Berhalter, and he could be a great coach. I don't care. He's an MLS coach. Why are we taking so long for an MLS coach? And the fact of the matter is, Taylor was talking about it on the air, that, look, he might be more intrigued by that LA Galaxy offer. Excuse me, what? A guy is more interested with an MLS team offer than a U.S. men's national team? Are you joking? You know, Jake made a little bit of like a short list of candidates that have been thrown around the media. I'm going to throw some out there, and then I want y'all's perspective. Berhalter,
no.
Hermes, Top
No.
Ramos,
No.
Greg Vanny, Tata Martino,
No.
Bob Bradley,
No.
Louis Van Gaal,
No.
David Moyes.
No.
And I was talking to someone about this, and I wanted to bring it up to you guys. Why aren't we hearing Oscar Pareja being thrown into this hat? He was like the guy everyone was talking about in 2016. All of a sudden, one bad year, and we're just going to throw all the stuff he's done out the window. And this night, my FC Dallas, like, I guess, because I talk to him almost every week. So that's not my bias showing. It's looking at the candidates. You got Greg Berhalter, great coach. But has there been any player he's kind of developed from like a homegrown status?
Armand,
I mean, go ahead.
That's the name I want. You know why? Is because you kill like 3 birds with one stone here. He's bilingual, so you appeal to the Hispanics, which have been neglected by U.S. soccer. He's from a multicultural locker room, so he knows that dynamic. He's respected, and he has a no-nonsense attitude. He will cut your ass,
wins.
And he will he will trade you to the worst team in MLS, in the Colorado Rapids, and now don't care that you're the face of the franchise. Kellen Acosta was the face of FC Dallas. And he said, bye-bye, I can replace you with somebody cheaper and more efficient. Bye. and Dallas has done quite well without Kellen Acosta. And he wins. Yes. But I think none of those names come up. And people on Twitter have been tweeting the show's account that Berhalter is overrated and Peter Vermeens has a better track record in winning percentage and has multiple trophies to his name. What has Berhalter ever won?
Second place in the MLS Cup.
Yeah. But Jake, those names, those intrigued you? Because I'm on the Oscar Pereira bandwagon. I want somebody new who has not been linked with the job. What about you? Do you want somebody from Europe?
I guess I just want the best guy. I don't. There's some names on here that I think are sexier than others. I would think.
Ooh, David Moyes, so sexy.
David Moyes is the one guy. I'm like, I don't want David Moyes. I've seen what David Moyes can do, and I don't like it. I don't want to ride that bus. I'm not on that bandwagon. But there are guys on the list like a Peter Vermees or a Greg Vanney or a Berhalter that, while they're not sexy, and they probably won't be in the top of my list. And if you're going to ask me who's on the top of your list, I don't really, to be honest with you. There isn't one guy I have marked as this is the number one guy I want. This is the guy who I would.
Because we don't have one.
We don't have one.
The same. They're all.
But if everyone who's like, I don't want an MLS coach. I mean, who's to say Greg Berhalter or Peter Vermees can't get more out of the national team than a guy like Bruce Arena or Klinsmann did? You know, I mean, who's to say? I don't know. Who's to say the U.S. doesn't want to wait for Jose Mourinho to get fired from Manchester United? Now, I don't know if Jose Mourinho would want the national team job, but who's to say they're out waiting for him? And who's to say he can't get more out of the national team than Klinsmann or Bruce Arena? Again, I'm completely speculating here, but I just want the best guy for the job. I just want a guy that we're 3 years from now. We're like, man, the national team's rolling again. We're back on track. Everything is all hunky dory. I don't have to worry about. I'm not sitting here questioning like I was in 2015 during like the first round or second round of CONCACAF qualifying. Yeah, I don't think the U.S. is going to qualify for the World Cup in Russia, and I have proof of that. I've shown you guys that in 2015 I said they aren't going to qualify. So just going to stroke my ego a little bit here. I just want a guy. If they're going to play defensive football, that's fine. I don't care. I just want results. If they're going to grind out 1-0 results, that's fine. If they're going to go and play beautiful, expressive football and they're going to win games 3-2, well, go ahead. That's fine too. I don't care. I just want to know the national team is in a better place than it was when 2018 qualifying started.
We were laughed at for suggesting that the U.S. men's national team could fail to qualify for the World Cup. We did a segment on the show before Jake was on, and we were mocked for even suggesting the idea. And look what happens. Is this going to bite U.S. soccer in the ass in 2 years' time? The fact that the coach didn't have the extra 4 or 5 months to talk to the players, particularly at the beginning of a European season, those players in Europe who will look at the goal.
So, Steven, I don't think it'll bite him in the ass. I don't think so. But I do think this is just a waste of time. Because, look, we are going to look at players, right? And they are building some highlight film. All right, cool. But whatever coach we have that is brought in, they might have a completely different system. They're not going to run Dave Saric 4-1 that, like, doesn't work. Or like, you know, don't even get me started on Dave Saric, please. There's going to be a different system in place, and he could be planting those seeds and, you know, developing, all right, well, we're going to do this, this, and this. Guys, let's not forget, we have a Gold Cup coming up this summer. The first major competition the U.S. men's national team will compete in since failing to make the World Cup in 2018. Let's not forget that. That's coming up.
Expectations are high.
They should be like they're going to be high, but I'd keep them modest. Mexico, who is coming off a World Cup appearance, has a much brighter future than us. We were god awful in that Mexico game until Julian Green was subbed on, until that red card. There was nothing going on. The game was boring. I almost fell asleep. There was almost some nap football right there. It's like, guys, really, what are we doing? Laughing off great candidates for an MLS coach. And you know what? Jake's right. MLS coach could be great. Could be fantastic. Could be awesome. But I'm not going to wait 11 months for an MLS coach. Are you joking?
They could have signed
that's a
Berhalter at the beginning of the MLS season. They really wanted to. If that's the guy, that's just a mismanagement of mismanagement. That's a fireable offense. If U.S. Soccer go after an MLS guy. The organization
runs a joke. It hasn't changed ever since we covered the election. It hasn't changed one bit. Not one bit. This is the same incompetence things. All we're saying is the youth players get a chance, which is what me and Steven were asking for, during qualifying. So that's not even like Dave Sarakan or anything. That's a logical thing to do. That's the right thing to do. That's not like, oh, Dave Sarakan, you're so amazing for calling up. No, that's what you're supposed to. If you're going to miss the World Cup, kick out all the dead weight, all the sheep, and then move on from there. Like, come on, man. It's such a joke. It is such a joke that we're sitting here right now and talking about how the USMNT national team still does not have a coach.
We
have a coach.
We don't have a coach, but if anybody...
We have a guy who's in place who's running the same garbage 4-1-4-1, terrible soccer until he's forced to make a change. And then, wow, now we're seeing success. Guys, what are we doing? Seriously, I keep repeating that, but I don't know what's going on. Why are we waiting so long for an MLS coach? Why is Oscar Pereira not being talked about? And again, it's not even like me like being FSL Speed Reports thing is why? Why are we talking about a guy who's been at all levels? He's been an academy director. He's been a coach of a top MLS side. He had one bad season. I'm sure he looked through Greg Berhalter for me.
Wait, Armand.
Seasons.
Why
are we eliminating him after one poor year?
He had one bad half season.
Ramos would even be considered, considering his teams can't qualify for the Olympics.
Garbage, man. Garbage. Absolute garbage. This coaching pool is garbage. And hopefully US can salvage it. But I think missing out on Juan Carlos Osorio and people comparing him to Klinsmann was the dumbest. It's the dumbest freaking thing I've ever seen. Oh, because he's a squad rotation, he is like Klinsmann. Yeah, woo, yeah. Get the hell out of here, man. This is garbage. The U.S. media, the way they look at certain candidates is garbage, and the way they push narratives is trash. Trash. Don't even get me started. I'll be happy with Greg Berhalter. I think he'd be an okay coach, but. Why we're not talking about Oscar Pereira because of a media narrative. We're not talking about Juan Carlos Osorio because he sounds like Klinsmann. Did Klinsmann do Klinsmann did some bad things like on the field, and we know that. We talked about that. But man, why is Klinsmann such like the devil?
Everything he said in regards to what players need to be doing to get prepared for the national team, he was right. And the media doesn't want to admit that. Any MLS media member, it seems like, doesn't really want to admit that, or anybody who was an anti-Klinsmann guy for the most part.
They don't have the balls.
Yeah, he was right. They need to be in Europe. You can't be relying. Your national team cannot mostly come from MLS. If MLS was a top 5 league in the world, sure, go ahead. Tell everybody to go play in MLS. That's fine. But to suggest that you can rely on a league that isn't even the best league in its confederation to provide players for the national team is asinine. Josie Altidore, Michael Bradley, guys like that should have stayed in Europe and said and I don't blame them either for doing this because you know what? They got a lot more money to come to MLS. But in the grand scheme of things, them playing in MLS had a negative impact on the national team.
Well,
man, one last thing, Steven. One last thing. And people are like, oh, this is so exciting. Our young players are playing. We beat Mexico. That game was awful, man. The game was not good until they subbed on Julian Green and, decided to play some wonky 4-1-4-1 with like 4 defensive midfielders.
And here's the thing, too. This is what I don't understand why Dave Sarakan's getting a big old pat in the back for doing this. I sure as hell hope that the young kid that's in U.S. soccer would be getting a look after you failed to qualify for the World Cup. Why, if we failed to qualify for the World Cup, well, we did, okay, and we go into those World Cup tune-ups against France and Bolivia, and I forget the other team they played against. If we went into those matches and we're like, well, you know what, we're gonna trot out Michael Bradley and Clint Dempsey and Josie Altidore and Jeff Cameron and all the guys that were part of the failure, we're going to trot them back out there again because why not? Like, come on, he doesn't deserve a pat on the back. That was the most logical step to do. And you guys were right. You guys said these kids should have been implemented into the side sooner during qualifying. That should have happened. And now Saracens getting a big old pat in the back for doing it. Like, that's the next logical step. That had to be done. If I don't know what I would have done if the same side that failed to get a point in Trinidad and Tobago was trotted out there against Mexico last week.
I would have
sorry,
something at them, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, Steven. But it's unbelievable. I mean, we've talked about this for so long, but it's unbelievable that we're talking about the state of the U.S. men's national team. It's been a year, and I feel like there's been a little bit of progress on the field, but off field, same old dumpster fire. It's embarrassing for me that I genuinely believe that the Iranian national football team, with all the sanctions they have, is in a much better place than the U.S. men's national team. Let's think about it. Let's break it down real quick. I'm sorry to keep us going longer, but let's think about it for a second. They used to have players signed for Brighton. A lot of their players are leaving the domestic Persian Gulf League and going to Europe. I think one of them just signed for Nottingham Forest in the championship. They have a couple players in the championship. They have a potential, I think, Atletico Bilbao or Madrid. I think it's Madrid. Academy player that they just found out he has Iranian nationality. They're coming through with a system, and if they can keep Kyrgios for one more cycle, they will finally have an identity that hasn't been found before. They're playing selfless. Soccer. They had a great performance at a World Cup, the best performance probably ever in a World. Actually, I think it was the best performance ever in a World Cup. They have young players coming up the system. A U17 team beat Germany, I think 4-0 in the U17 World Cup in India. Does that not sound brighter? United States that, constantly that failed to make a World Cup, doesn't have an identity. A lot of players are still in MLS. Some of the young players are going to Europe, but they're not getting looks. It's like third division, they're not getting looks. All MLS kids are getting looks. Does that not sound like a better future than what the U.S. men's national team has? Because I sure as hell think they do at the moment. And it should be a shame that USSF has fallen this far, not pecking order, that a team with sanctions that plays on basically cow dirt is ahead of them. Embarrassing. And all USSF should be ashamed. Carlos Cordero, you've proved nothing to me in your time there. Nothing. Grow up.
You know that one do you know that one politician from, I think it's Minnesota, Jake, that has the dumpster fire in the background, and it's an actual dumpster fire? Have you seen that?
No, no. What? This is a thing? It can't be Minnesota. You have to be wrong.
No, 10,000 lakes. What? Who has that slope?
That's us. That's Minnesota.
That's you. You have a politician who talks about having a dumpster fire of Washington, D.C., and he actually has a dumpster fire behind them. I don't understand the U.S. media when they talk about progress being made. It is a natural progression that the team would progress from where we were a year ago when you bring in all these young kids and they have more games under their belt. Of course that's going to happen. They also just get older. Like, Tyler Adams is a year older than he is 1 year ago today. Like, it is the natural progression. These young kids were going to break through at this time no matter what. Look at Mexico. They got young kids breaking through their system, and they just qualified for the World Cup. Tell me what the difference is between U.S. Soccer and the Mexican Federation. They're both looking for coaches. One's just had a whole freaking year to do it, and they seem to have no direction. Mexico, I don't know. They seem to be also confused. Listen to the game broadcast with Gomez and Sebastian Salazar. We're going to try to bring in Salazar on the next couple weeks to talk about the dynamic between U.S. Soccer and the Mexican Federation and the overlaps and who is in a better going forward, who is in the driver's seat going forward between the two federations, because we know those are supposedly 1A and 1B.
The answer is Mexico. It's not USSF. If anything, you have an answer between a country and USSF, it's definitely Mexico. They have freaking some of the top talent that's being scouted by Man United. Diego Lainez is being and Alvarado. So many scouts are being looking at them. But it's not USSF. I'll tell you that. It's not them. Don't even compare the two. Mexico, for some reason, is on a whole different standard right now compared to USSF, and that's how garbage USSF is. And rant.
All right, listeners, if you truly believe U.S. soccer is heading in the right direction, let us know. We want to know why. We gave you your thoughts. All right, it's been a show of hot takes. You think our takes about Save the Crew and MLS in Austin were completely wrong? FC Dallas fans, maybe you dislike what we had to say? Send in your thoughts. We love when we hear it. At Jake Watrova for all the hate mail. I'm just kidding, Jake. Send it at Steven Jotter, at Armand5. Maybe at Unc Sam Soccer Pod, because we all see the Twitter account. We all get the notifications, and we love it. We love the fan interaction. It was Alexi Lawless that said this stuff benefits U.S. soccer, and I believe that too. I'm in agreement with Alexi Lawless there, that any conversation about U.S. soccer does ultimately make it better because people talk about it. And there is going to be a natural progression where hopefully accountability actually ends up at the feet of U.S. soccer. So we'll see what happens. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then.